As you can see in the title of this video today, we are covering Unlawful Act Manslaughter. But first, let's look back at its relative, murder. Murder is simple. A person can be charged with murder if he satisfies both the actus reus and the mens rea. See, simple. But you studious students are probably wondering, what if the defendant kills without the intention to kill or do GBH? Is he still guilty of murder? The quick answer is no. You need both the actus reus and mens rea of murder. However, if he intended to do some other criminal offence, like battery or ABH, he would be charged with Unlawful Act Manslaughter. And that is essentially all Unlawful Act Manslaughter is. It is the unlawful killing of a human being under King's peace, but with a few additional requirements. Firstly, there must be an unlawful act. The act must be dangerous, then it must cause the death of the victim. As for the mens rea, they must have intention to do the unlawful act. Now, let's look more into depth at each of those points. The act itself must be unlawful, meaning just because it killed a person doesn't necessarily make the act itself unlawful. For example, let's say the person was negligent and they ended up killing a person. That would be an act itself which is not unlawful, hence they wouldn't be charged with Unlawful Act Manslaughter. The act must then be dangerous. To determine if it's dangerous, the case Church states that all sober and reasonable people would recognise that the other person is subject to at least some harm. And the case Newbury and Jones adds to this, explaining that it's unnecessary to prove the defendant knew the act was unlawful or dangerous. Then Goodfellow illustrates, adding more to this, that the act doesn't even need to be directed at the victim, it can be done indirectly. And JM and SM says that it's not necessary to foresee the particular type of harm. They just need to foresee some harm. Now I advise you to look these cases up on the internet and you just read the scenario to get a good idea of what the case is about and how the judges came up with the legal principle. Also, exam scenarios might attempt to imitate some of these scenarios. And so knowing the cases is quite good, especially key cases. The act must then be the cause of death. Now this is just normal causation. So the unlawful act must be closely linked to the death, no breaks in the chain of causation, and obviously it involves all your usual rules and cases for causation, so rather straightforward. And finally, that brings us to the mens rea. The mens rea is very straightforward. In the case Lamb, it was stated that if there is no mens rea for the unlawful act, then the defendant is not guilty. Therefore, you must have the intention for the unlawful act in order to be guilty of Unlawful Act Manslaughter. And that is Unlawful Act Manslaughter, a nice little addition to homicide. Next up is Gross Negligence Manslaughter, which we will look at in the next revision video. Until then.